We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the Halting Winter Podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the Halting Winter Podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. We've got a special podcast episode for you today. A return guest, Charlie Bush, City Administrator in Sedro-Woolley, Washington, here to talk about something both incredibly relevant and incredibly inspiring. Charlie, welcome back to the podcast. It's great to have you on today.
Thank you, Seth. It's great to be here again.
Man, episode 115, all the way back to the beginning time when we started interviewing city managers, administrators from across the country. Your story is incredible. Not only did you share it on that episode 115, you can go back and listen to that. In our MLDC, the Municipal Leadership Development Circle, you led a municipal masterclass webinar on the topic of resilience and really walk through your story, which I thought was so powerful. To talk about burnout, to talk about the physical toll, the mental toll, and in light of it wasn't like you were doing great work. Your story is just so powerful, and that you were doing amazing work. You were part of all these opportunities and didn't really see it coming. It was like a total shock of just why is my body shutting down? What is going on here? And I think it's just a powerful story. So to encourage anyone, obviously listen to the podcast episode, but if you are, that's why we have the MLDC. It's to encourage leaders to remember that you are a person before you are a professional. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today is this incredible epic summer adventure you are about to go on, and what it means to you, how you kind of the what, the how, the why. And so let's dive into it. Tell us about this summer adventure, this hike.
Yeah, so I'm going to be hiking on the Pacific Crest Trail here in Washington. I've been working my way gradually south, what's known as SOBO in through hiking language. NOVO is northbound. I'm going southbound. I started working on this in 2023, and this all goes back a ways. I am a part of the Athenian program with the College of Charleston, and our first cohort that I was part of, I had a professional and a personal challenge. And my personal challenge was to start doing this. So it took me a number of years. The pandemic happened and everything else. But in 2023, I got started and had to hike up the Canadian border and turn around and come back. So the last 30 miles of that 60-mile round trip were part of this journey. And then the year after that, there were fires in the way, so I couldn't do it. Last year, I got the next 30 miles in, and I did it the same way. I hiked 30 miles from Rainy Pass up to Harts Pass, and then in Harts Pass is where I started the previous year or 2 years before, and then hiked back. So I did 60 miles round trip, but 30 trail miles. This year, I'm looking to do up to 440 trail miles. So essentially finishing the rest of Washington State on the PCT, and a minimum, barring injury and other things, of 296 miles. So somewhere between 296 and 440, it's probably going to be one or the other because there's not a lot in between. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it because I love to hike, and I've done trips up to 10 days where, like, by day 10, I feel really good and I want to just keep hiking, and I have to stop. The trip's over. I did that on the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier, where I would have gone another lap if I had it in the plans, but I had to start a new job in Sequim, so I had to
go. Okay, we got to back up. I know you have so much to share; it's gonna be so good. But I think you just blew people's minds, because people think like, I go for a walk at night. Maybe I do a mile, maybe 2. You just said 400, like it was just like, whatever, let's do 400 miles. Like, okay, walk us back to like. Again, you're in Cedar-Woolley. For the national audience, this is north of Seattle, about an hour and 20 minutes, I think, and an hour and a half maybe. And so, but how far away from the Canadian border is Cedar-Woolley?
Yeah, we're about an hour from the Canadian border south by car. By pro, it's probably 50 miles, something like that.
Yeah. And so this first trip you said on this trail, so the Pacific Crest Trail, if you don't know this trail, this goes from Canada down into Mexico, I think, doesn't it?
Yep, goes to the Mexican border, starts in, I believe it's Campo, California, right on the border, and it goes up through the desert, then goes into the Sierras, and then it's going all the way through California into Oregon, kind of eastern side of the Oregon Cascades, and then here into Washington, goes across the Bridge of the Gods, which is kind of my stretch goal, is to get to the Bridge of the Gods at 440 miles, going southbound this year.
Yeah. So when we're talking about, and when we're talking about the Pacific Crest Trail, we're talking about like, give us a scope of, when we think about trails, we think about, the parks in our local neighborhood. Maybe these county parks are a little more expansive. Maybe if you live in Washington, you've been down to the Olympic Peninsula and been on some trails, these are like maybe 6, 8, 10 miles. You're talking about something that's hundreds of miles long. And what is it like up there? Like, give us this sense of the environment.
Yeah. First off, Pacific Crest Trail, 2,600 miles in total. And I may do all of that. I'd like to through hike all that at once someday. So that's kind of on my retirement list, But yeah, when you're up there, you're in wilderness and much this trail. This is a beautiful trail. It's a beloved trail. One of the 3 national corridor trail, or 3, what's called the Big 3 trails. There are actually, I think, 11 national scenic trails, but it's definitely one of those. But it is one of the big 3 that people do. They call it Triple Crown of hiking, or this one, the Continental Divide Trail and the Appalachian Trail, kind of make up those 3. There's a Pacific Crest Trail Association that supports trail maintenance out there. They do a really amazing job. And this trail is just beloved and has a lot of people have put their time and energy into it. So when you're out there, it's partly an equestrian trail. So the grades are not as steep as you might find on some of the more rugged trails that are around the country. And it's what hikers sometimes will call cruisy trail, like where you're just out there and you're just in flow. And, you're just going up and down mountains and enjoying these incredible vistas. It's a crest trail, so it tends to run up high. So a lot of it is, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 feet, where you're up on ridge lines and you just see the most amazing things. And you're in wilderness, so you're out there with all the animals, but you're also out there with the community. There's a roving community of through hikers, and there's a kind of a pool of them that go northbound every year. That's the biggest group, and I'll be crossing through some of that group on my hike. But then there's the southbound group that usually starts about this time of year, and I'm anticipating hiking with some of the southbounders just as they're 60 miles into their trip. So they're just getting their legs as well. And I'm looking forward to that. I trained really hard to hopefully be able to keep up with them this year. I could not keep up with the northbounders to save me at all on previous years. They're totally different animals at the time that they're almost at the end of it.
It's so wild. It's so wild. So how long are you going to be on this trail?
So I'll be out there for over 3 weeks, up to like 3.5 weeks. Mm-hmm. And, that's about the edge, I think, of what I can do in terms of professionally being away. I don't think I could. I added one more day recently because I could see that I have 6 to 7 days for the last section, and I really want to get that in if I can. I thought I might be 1 day short. Let me just throw 1 day on the end and see if I can pull it off. And fortunately, I have a very supportive mayor, a very supportive team here. And I mean, I have council members asking me, when's your hike? When are you doing it? So people are kind of into it, excited about it as well. As I certainly am. It's a great challenge. But this is all done in like 5 to 6 day segments, and there are 4 of them. Yeah. So in each of those segments, it's like its own backpacking trip. Mm-hmm. So I send a resupply package to where that segment ends and the next one begins, and fill up my backpack with all that stuff and hopefully get a shower and rest up a little bit as needed, and upload some videos. I've got a YouTube channel, Charlie's Hikes, that I'll be posting to as well. Daily vlogs that'll be about 10 days delayed. But if anybody wants to watch them, they're going to go every day. So during this, I've worked out how to edit on my phone and stuff. So those will be streaming for over 3 weeks as well. And yeah, you just keep it rolling. You got to just do a lot of self-care. It's a very simple life. They say you eat, you sleep, and you hike. That's pretty much. I would just add the self-care blended into that. You got to make sure you take care of blisters and hot spots and work out some tight spots in your body and all that as well.
Well, I want to get into that now is the how. You talk about the what of it. Now the how. And I think what would be so helpful for our audience is personally, I know there's a ton of prep that you've done, like you said, with those drops, these food supplies, but also get into the personal, but also the professional, because I think some people have already gone, 3.5 weeks. How are you? What in the world? What kind of council do you work for? You're working for in the Garden of Eden out there, Cedar Woolley. What have you? Because I talk about this in some of my keynotes. Is the strategic pause? I'm really pushing for a sabbatical type of mindset that once a year you get away for an extended time that helps you refresh, but also makes your team rise up and take some ownership. And I know you want to talk about that. So to help us, give us the how. How do you prepare for this personally and professionally?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I've been thinking about it, talking about it for a long time. I guess I'll start with the personal. I really trained all winter. I love winter time at this point because to me, it's like when your great hikes are made. It's like you prepare your body, you prepare your mind. And the older I get, the more I really lean into fitness stuff and wellness. And I've had my own personal journey that's kind of led me to this place too. And so that without that, I'm not sure I'm doing that. But I'm really thankful for that. But yeah, a lot of work this winter, lost 30 pounds, pretty much lost my max pack weight off my body. And it's a trippy feeling to put on a pack that feels heavy. And then it doesn't feel heavy when I start hiking. It's just like last year with no pack. So that's really cool. That's been great. That was my focus this winter. But do strength training, do a lot of cardio, do weight training, do a lot of bike riding. Because as a friend of mine who's a duathlete says, it's like a really safe activity where you don't get injured, especially stationary riding. And once you're above 50, you just never know. So that's been a good one for me. But yeah, that's on the personal side. And besides researching the trail and figuring out all the logistics and stuff. On the professional side, it's been a lot of thinking about how to project plan, because every year we all have a whole agenda of things going on. We're fortunate in Cedar Woolley in that we're a very hiking oriented community. And we don't have any studies. We typically have 3 council meetings a month, but we only have 2 a month in the summer. And a lot of people take vacation time, especially in August. And I'm kind of on the edge of that because I'm also trying to straddle snow melting. And it was a low snowpack year, which is great. But snow melting, but fire's not starting yet because fires will disrupt your hike around here. And it's likely to be a heavy fire season. So hoping to be in that window. So that tends to have me a little earlier, but we have a big community festival around the 4th of July. So I had to be here for that. So I'm leaving right after that, trying to only miss one city council meeting. So careful planning there. And then I've got 4 people I've put in place as acting city administrators while I'm gone. For each, I'm meeting with them all along with the mayor to coordinate things. Got a bunch of projects that are underway. And the team that I'm a part of, we're taking over operations of our senior center from our county right now. Bunch of things that I've done, like teed up a lot of that work. So I'll work extra up front to try to make sure these things are all squared away as much as possible, and then set up systems and kind of contingency plans if things go a certain way, and then leave people in charge to manage those. So that team is all set up to manage itself going forward. And people know what the roles are and everything else. So do a lot of that. I do a lot of what I call boomeranging of work, where I'm literally like, we have a study that we have a consultant doing for us on classification compensation. Got that all organized, pushed really hard to get to this point, and now they're released to go, and our HR manager will make sure that any questions that come up get answered. So do that kind of stuff. You can never anticipate the random thing. Something will happen in 3.5 weeks, and you leave people in charge, and you got to trust your team, and it's an opportunity for them to grow by wearing your hat for this period of time, short periods of time. I try to spread it around. I wouldn't ask anybody, hey, please, for 3.5 weeks, be the city administrator, unless there was a clear reason to do that, like we had a deputy administrator or this person that expressed a real significant interest in my role. And it was a succession planning kind of thing. Those are different scenarios. Don't have that exactly here. So I try to spread it around and also be thoughtful about functionally, who does it make sense to have be the acting administrator in this particular week based on what I know is going on at that time. So give some thought to that as well. So a lot of planning goes into it. And then my projects, like I have a whiteboard where I track my projects. My July is really light. And that's been the case all year. I knew that going in. Like July is kind of shot. I'll wrap some stuff up and then I'll come back in August.
Yeah.
And you just plan it out that way and just make sure you're getting your stuff done.
I love what you said. You've planned, you've done some extra pushing to make sure to get things kind of lined up and ready, but you've also empowered your team. And like you said, I think part of it is we get in our heads like, oh gosh, I can't be gone for more than a week. And if I'm even gone for that week, I got to have 18 phones next to me with, personally tied into whoever decision maker wants. And the reality is, if you got hit by a bus, on the first day of this trip, if you stayed at home, it's not like the city's going to hire some interim administrator who knows the city enough to actually make healthy decisions. The people that you've put in charge know what's going on there. Even though there's, like I think you said earlier, we were chatting, like, even if they make a decision that you wouldn't have made, it's a decision, and that's life. That is, I think we get in our heads about just my presence there is going to make everything better. And of course, I think obviously that's why they have city managers, city administrators, but you're not godlike. Like, take the time to be human. And I love that you're taking this. And I believe that's why one of the things I've seen in my life, and I've seen in those who take these kind of, I call them sabbaticals or extended times away. And it's extended time where, and I want to talk about this too, about where, yes, they can get a hold of you if there's an emergency in a certain way. You're not carrying a phone because, again, you mentioned before, that's 7 extra ounces, and probably no service anyway. So what the heck am I doing? But I think there's that reality of, there are some ways in those stops, right, that you're going to make for food resupplies to get in contact with you if the world starts burning. But I think it's empowering all these people to just act, to be wise. They know what's going on. And sometimes we have to remember, like you said, you also looked at the schedule. You're not choosing like the week the budget's due. You've thought intentionally about the time away, and you're going to come back and your team's going to have felt some ownership and felt some, I think it allows them to kind of take on some more and you to kind of get into that next level of leadership and impact. So, it's so good.
Yeah, it really builds, I think, camaraderie amongst the team as well. They're going to have to hand off between each other as acting city administrators. And so that's kind of another layer of this. It builds that teamwork. It's always fun coming back because, you have no idea what totally happened. So it's a while to kind of figure it out and catch up to it. Yeah. And I usually give myself a few days to just try to get my bearings before I start jumping into things. And to trust the folks who've been doing it. They know what to do. We have really competent professionals. People don't always have the confidence, but they know what to do. And they've got a great team around them. So they know they can rely on each other. And we have a mayor here as well to help guide the ship. And she's definitely got opinions that areas will show way in on things. And so, yeah, it has a tendency to work out. Things will come up, though. You no matter how much planning you do, even if you're a year out like I was, there's still stuff that you can't avoid. I couldn't avoid, not that I was trying, it was their call, but our city council decided a few weeks ago that they want to have us take over senior center operations in our community, and they want us to do it by August. So all during my time away, essentially. And, I just had to figure out, all right, well, how are we going to do this? So figured out how to have a team, work on that. And as time's been going along, as I'm leading up to this, I'm just stepping back a little more. So the day or two before, I'll hardly be doing much with that, but the team should be pretty autonomous at that point. And so you just figured out there's always a way. I've been through a lot of transitions like that before in my career, so I know how to do that. It's just a matter of laying out the roadmap for folks and helping them through the process.
Well, and I think this is why, again, it mirrors what you're doing. You've prepared, just like you've prepared for this hike, but you're going to go out on this hike and life's going to happen. Like, it's not like you can prepare and plan and strategize, to the moon, and that you have you can't, you're not in charge of the weather. You're not in charge of bears. You're not in charge of all these things that we're going to talk about. And so I think that's the beauty of it. These things that you do in your personal life to stretch you have such an impact because they have a lot of same lessons, a lot of same realities. Will you talk just for a second? Because I think this could be lost. We all know city managers, city administrators, they're 24/7 jobs like this. You're on, you're always, evening meetings, weekend events, the 4th of July festival, all these kind of things. There is a reality of you're not just going to take 3 weeks off and for the first time all year go hiking 400 miles. you have in your life, you said winter training. Again, if you live in the Pacific Northwest, it's dark, it's gray, it's cold. It's not Alaska, right, with 10,000 feet of snow. But you are so there's training indoors. There's all kinds of things. But you've carved out the time. You can't do something as significant as you're about to embark on without carving out time to personally have time to train, will you just speak to that? Because I think that's an important thing. Of sometimes I worry that city managers, administrators wait until their vacation to really have any time of unplugging, and which is why they come back from their vacation almost like, I need a vacation from that vacation, because it took me 2 weeks just to come back to earth and remember I'm a human. Talk to the discipline of those boundaries to give you the time to train for something like this.
Yeah, I think that's really critical stuff. I'm glad you brought that up. From my own journey, from a health perspective, I really had to learn to set boundaries better, and I've done that, and to prioritize my health and family life and other things, in addition to all the work stuff that we're all ambitious about getting done, and then we feel a lot of demands on our time for. So I just have some things that are non-negotiable. And we all have our biorhythms. I'm a morning person, and I get up at 4 a.m. and I put in a lot of the time on a lot of these things. And by the time I get here to work, it's been 4 hours of about 3 hours of doing wellness stuff. And so I just prioritize that time. But that also means that I go to bed early. And I can tell you, on nights when we have late council meetings, those are rough. And I've learned to take Thursday mornings off. So that's how I've flexed my time. I don't do all the wellness stuff on Thursday mornings. That's like that. So you do adjust, but you want to hold that space. A few years ago, Jim Collins, the best-selling author, wrote Good to Great, spoke at the ICMA conference for the second time, and I had a chance to introduce him. It was a really cool experience. But I got to go to dinner with him the night before with a bunch of other city managers and county managers. And one of the things he brought up, and he mentioned it in his talk as well, about this kind of trying to set time aside and prioritize and everything else, is I love the analogy that you want to throw rocks in the river. The idea is you throw rocks in the river at the beginning of the year, and these rocks are things that all of life will just flow around, but you're keeping those rocks present. And he was talking about vacations with his wife. For me, it's not just rocks in the river throughout the year like this hike, but it's also rocks in the river in how you structure your time. And so for me, the wellness time in the morning, it's non-negotiable. If I had a position where I could not maintain that, I would find a new position. It's just that important. And I'm very authentic and upfront about it with anybody I work for. This is something I need to do for my own personal health and well-being. And if I can't, it's just not worth it. So that's how I've gone about it. And then on weekends, same thing. And I will say the training hikes, they got long. I'm up to like 25-mile training hikes by the end of this. And I've been ramping up since February. And so some Sundays, nobody's hiking with me. I'm hiking by myself, and I'm doing crazy things, climbing the same mountain 2 or 3 times and doing all these strange loops and going through forest roads and areas where they applied herbicides. And I'm like, all right, no water being taken here, and just things like that. But by the end of that, I'm ready. In fact, I don't want to do another training hike for quite a while. We do a 52 hike challenge set up in our city. So we try to do 52 hikes in a year. Many of us who have signed on to that as part of our wellness program. And I'm part of that. And I had to drop away from that group that we hike every Sunday with a group from the city. I had to drop away from that group a little bit because I couldn't get enough miles in and enough elevation with them. And I didn't want to wear them out either. But I'm looking forward to reuniting with that group and getting back into that. But that's one of the ways I've kept going all winter too. It's great to have a peer group. So if you have an activity you love, find that peer group, and they'll help keep you going and keep you engaged. And on those December Sundays when here we can still hike in the lowlands, but it's pouring down rain and it's 35 degrees, not pleasant. But if you've got a peer group that says, yeah, let's go out and do that and then go out for a meal, that makes all the difference. You're going to get yourself out the door.
I think many people assume the AI and all of the new technology coming out, it's something reserved for large cities and urban counties with big budgets and dedicated IT teams. That is simply not true. Whether you serve in a rural township, a village, a small town, a city, or a county of any size, AI can help your organization work smarter, improve your resident service, and give your team back valuable time to focus on the work that matters most. Tyler Technologies is helping local governments of every size put practical AI solutions to work, helping make communities more efficient, more resilient, and better prepared for the future. To learn how your organization can begin using AI today in helpful ways, visit tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if you'll be attending the GMIS Meets Conference in Virginia, be sure to stop by the Tyler Technologies booth and join the AI at Work general session held on Monday afternoon to see firsthand how local governments are putting AI to work in practical, meaningful ways. Now, back to the conversation.
I love it. I love it. So good. Okay. Let's talk about the why. I know that you have some thoughts here, and I thought as we kind of went over these are amazing. So walk us through these thoughts that you've had on why you're doing this, or what you hope to gain from this.
Yeah, I would say, first I'm just going to kind of go down a list here, but, we only get now, like I've mentioned, I'd love to hike the Pacific Crest Trail as a through hike someday. But I'm connecting these segments right now and just doing it in sections. And that may be my hike of the Pacific Crest Trail. This might be my last hike of the Pacific Crest Trail. Who knows? But, I get to go do this. It's a privilege to be out there. It's a privilege to be in the jobs we're in. Just appreciate every moment. It's what we know we have. And beyond that, you don't know. So try not to live in the future, live now. So that's the first one. The second one is self-discovery. Just getting out there, you're putting yourself in mental positions and physical positions that are uncomfortable by design. But when you go through those things, they really, there's a book called, it's by not Jim Collins, but David Goggins. And I can't remember the name of it right now, but he talks about callousing the mind. Mm-hmm. And this idea that you do really hard things and it prepares you for other hard things. And so I love getting out there and doing hard things, because when I'm in a tough council meeting or a tough labor negotiation in the future, it really prepares me professionally for that, but also prepares me to show up better in my personal life when there's something hard going on with my aging parent or something. So it's just really good for self-discovery, kind of learning who you are, what you're all about, what thoughts come up when you're really up against it. You encounter a river crossing, the bridge is out. Now, what do? How are you going to handle that? How do you stay cool? How do you stay calm? Are your thoughts about, I want this day to end before it gets dark, going to derail you? Or are you going to get so frustrated that you just can't think straight? Or are you going to calm yourself, apply yourself? If there are people around you, maybe work with some other people, find a way across the river. It's a whole bunch of challenges out there. And I just love that about it. For me, that's a great hobby. Hobby can be anything for anybody, though, listening to this. It doesn't have to be this. It could literally be anything. Set professional boundaries. We talked about that a fair amount. But that's one of the reasons why I think it's important to do that. It's important to do that up front. And if you don't do that, these jobs will just run you over. It's just the way that it's not by design. It's just the nature of it. So you really have to take care of yourself. And as much as that may be a concern for people, it's really a requirement. Otherwise, you're going to damage yourself in trying to do this work. And you'll find that people will respect that, especially over time if you're consistent with it. And I go right into job interviews and talk about it. So I'm pretty upfront, but I would recommend that. Just let people know, this is who I am. This is what I need. This is how I operate. It's not necessarily the quantity of time you put into something. It's really the quality of time. You got to find that right balance for you. I would definitely encourage you all to set a goal around a hobby that you have. First, have a hobby. Second, set some goals around it and then work towards those goals. And for me, it's the journey, not necessarily whatever destination that goal represents. That is really the fun part. I love the winter workouts. And, I don't necessarily love the training hikes right now, but I love the rest of it. And I'm looking forward to next winter. I've already got a goal for next winter. You just kind of keep going with that. Lots of communication, I think, is really critical. It's not a why, but I think it's important with this. Communicate professionally, communicate personally. Make sure you're being really upfront about what it's going to take to do the thing you're trying to do. Be open to help. I need help from our team to be able to pull this off. I'm one of the people who kind of prefers to consolidate my vacation time when I can. It's a lot harder for me to be out for 3 days here and 4 days there than it is to just be gone for a few weeks. So in doing that, though, I recognize there's an impact, and you really do need help with that. And you need help at home too. My wife's got to look after a whole bunch of stuff while I'm gone. And so she and I have been working on how to streamline that as best we can. Allow your team to grow. We've talked about that, but I think that's really important. This is an opportunity for them to step up, do different things, gain your perspective a little bit on the world, perhaps inspire them. You just never know. Somebody might be acting city administrator and say, I can do that. And that's great. I love that. I love hearing that. I've had the opportunity to mentor a few people who've gone and do bigger things. And I'm, all for that. Anytime somebody can reach their professional potential, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mentioned boomeranging work before, but that's definitely a concept. And you can practice that in doing this. This isn't a reason to do it, not a why necessarily, but it is definitely an approach. Expect that things will happen when you're gone. They just will. I mentioned that as well. So, just know that will occur and it's going to be okay. And then blurring the lines between professional and personal. I'll be out there doing leadership development stuff because it's just kind of how I'm wired. I'll be listening to some podcasts and some audiobooks, and I'll probably check off 10 or 15 hours of my ICMA credentialed manager requirements for the year, just absorbing some stuff. And I'll probably do it in bite-sized pieces, generally what I do. So, listen to a chapter or two and I'll think about it maybe for a few hours, and ruminate on it, and then take down a few notes and go from there. It's just a great opportunity to kind of reflect and get perspective. And I will say this too, it's a 3-week trip, and 3 weeks is how much time it takes to form a new habit. So if I do kind of get onto something, I can really work some new things and help myself in that regard. So that's great. It's also enough time to be away where you can really get perspective on your situation and what's going on. A concept called time bending. And the why is this is an immersive activity. When you're out hiking, you're hiking. I mean, you need to focus on what you're doing. Yes, I will think about some things if the hiking's easy and maybe listen to an audiobook. But, a lot of the day is just, where's my next water? When am I going to eat? What time am I getting to camp? Where am I camping? Do I have gear issues I need to address? Are my feet okay? Like, you're very much in the moment. And I think those kinds of immersive experiences, whether it's that or a meditation retreat or some other thing that you're really into, they really bend time. I find when I'm out for a 2 or 3 day trip, it feels like a week trip. And if I'm out for a week trip, it might feel like a 2 or 3 week trip. So this may feel like a multi-month trip just because you're packing so many experiences into it. And it's really, really great for that. So any kind of vacation where you can time bend, I highly recommend it. The last thing on my list is just really practicing the samurai code. This is out of another book. Can't remember the name of the book now. But it's out of another book about excellence, and it's a sports psychology book. But the samurai code is I expect nothing, and there's nothing that I cannot handle. And I adopted this from that book because it's on my whiteboard. It's a great thing to practice. I think about it before going to council meetings. I don't know what to expect on this hike. I'm going to encounter things. I had 3 bears in one afternoon the other day. I broke a spoon. I'm a cold soaking person out there, and I broke a spoon, and that's a problem because that's my only utensil. So I was getting very personal with my food after that. You just got to deal with stuff, but you can handle it. You'll figure it out. And that's a part of that. And that's reality for all of us, whether it's professional or personal. So those are some of the things. I mean, I'm sure there are more, but those are a lot of the things that I really enjoy about this kind of activity, this kind of time away. And would encourage anybody and everybody to try to do something, even if it's on a small scale, along this line.
Yes, so many good thoughts. It's so great. But I love this. Again, what you're doing personally has so many implications professionally, not just in the fact that you're going to be gone and your team's going to have to step up. I think there's some real easy, tangible wins to see there. But it's even the thing, like you said, of this kind of preparation, the kind of, especially with something like this at this level, the training, the consistency, the discipline, the fighting through adversity. Again, the spoon, I'm sure blisters. I don't even know how your feet get blisters anymore with that much hiking. They're just solid calluses of chaos. But that we're going through a book in the MLDC, a part of our summer series called Unbroken. Laura Hillebrand, famous book, famous movie. I think Angelina Jolie directed it. And in that story is, he's this prisoner of war. He's at sea. He has to go through just the unbearable. But the author points out this fact that he was a runner before that early in life. And it was all that training that put him in a much different mental space on that raft at sea than the other people the 2 other people in that boat who didn't have that mental fortitude. And I think about how many people right now are listening to this and what's on their mind is the drama from the last city council meeting and some project, someone's emotional chaos. And these kind of things put you in a spot. Like you said, even that last thing about time bending, about the noise, about just being out and all you hear is nothing really, the nature, and how it's one thing to go out and do that for a day. It's another to do it for 3 weeks. That becomes now the threshold. That becomes the norm. So in fact, maybe when you come back, I'm sure it's almost wild to like come back to civilized life again.
It's a lot. In fact, even when you're near a trailhead where people are hiking in and they've just showered that night and they come in with their perfume or their cologne or whatever, I mean, you can just smell them from quite a ways away. Like those are city folks. Granted, you can also be smelled from miles away. Yourself. And I've had a time or two when I've been out there because sometimes you're going a week or more without a shower where I'm like, gosh, there must be a skunk around you. And I realize now it's just me. I smell. It's amazing. But yeah, the stimulation in normal life is tremendous. You use all this noise, all these smells, all these sounds, all this pace. And one of the most profound experiences I had with this was hiking in and out of the Grand Canyon and backpacking down there for 4 days. And coming out, you get to the South Rim and it's just busyness. And you feel that tension of the world, but you're also on you're in a totally different flow yourself. You're in this flow where, you'll sit in the dirt, you'll grab water from a stream, you'll do whatever it takes to just live. And you're really tuned into the birds and you're really tuned into all kinds of things. And after a trip, just try to stay in that space if you can for a while. Same things happen to me in meditation retreats. There are a variety of ways you can put yourself in this space, but there's something really natural about that. You're really just tapping into your own nature, and it is a good reminder. And that's why I think nature is so restoring and healing for people, because even a walk in your park, if you spend enough time out there, you can get into that kind of headspace where you slow down, everything slows down. And that really helps you then, I think, coming back to personal and professional life where you're at a slower pace, everybody else is racing, and you can kind of bring people somewhat to your pace. And in doing that, you're more thoughtful, you make better decisions. You can be more compassionate. You can do a whole lot of things as a result of just going at a slower, more methodical pace and really being tuned into the flow.
Mm. When you mentioned this to me, I thought about Jesse Itzler. He talks about something called the Misogi. It's an annual year-defining challenge that pushes you far outside your comfort zone. It scares you. It even has about a 50% chance of failure. It's like this big thing. And I want to encourage people to strongly consider this, because then, you shared the story. Now it's like, how might they take action? But the first thing is I want to say, you're doing a physical thing. And I think oftentimes we can think that, well, I'm not a hiker. I'm not a marathon runner. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be mental. It can be creative. It can be quitting a lifelong addiction, taking the stage for a TED Talk, learning to speak a foreign language, and then going and immersing yourself into that culture. It can be learning to play the piano in front of some people, right? There's all kinds of things you could do that can be that. The 3 core rules of a Misogi are: it must push you, significant training and effort, which you obviously have done this year. It must scare you, genuinely kind of a healthy fear of failure, maybe by getting eaten by bears, which again, I'm not sure what the scare could be for a piano. Maybe break a crazy string, hit you in the face. And the third thing, it should be for you. It shouldn't just be to show off for others. It really should be your personal growth. And I think when you told me about what you're doing, all 3 of those screamed at me and said, "Man, you're doing the Misogi. You're doing it. Like, this is so cool." And maybe to encourage, if you want to learn more about that, again, you can go Google Jesse Itzler, Itzler. I'll put a link. I think I shared it with you as a podcast. He was on My First Million podcast with Sean Peary, and they talked about, and Sean talked about his was to learn the piano. He had always wanted to learn it, and he was so embarrassed though. Like, oh my gosh, to play in front of people would be so embarrassing because I'd stink, and and it was a cool look at a different kind of Misogi. And so anyway, this is so cool, Charlie. I can't wait to catch up with you afterwards and hear how it was. What was the adversity? What were the challenges? What were the takeaways? So we're going to do that. But anything else you'd leave us with?
I hope listening to this, it just gives you an opportunity to take a step back and reflect a little bit and maybe come up with your own approach, and this is something I didn't just jump into. This is developed over many, many years of doing a little bit bigger trips and a little bit bigger trips and getting some insights and getting some reflection time. And now it's this. It doesn't mean I'll do this again next year. I'll do something probably shorter. I actually planned a bunch of shorter trips, but these are really healthy opportunities. And I would just encourage everybody to lean into them and, let go of your fear. I think that's what holds a lot of us back from a lot of the things that we do.
Yeah. Well, one of my keynotes is called the strategic pause. What are these pauses throughout your day, your week, and your month, and again, your vacations? And I think it's always good when I hear, here's a city administrator embodying it. Like, here's a real example. It's not like me just talking about, it's like you had to work through all the personal realities, the professional realities to make a trip of this scope and size happen. And you've done it. And I can't wait to hear the results. So thanks, Charlie, for sharing today.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate it.
I have this unique pleasure, this unique opportunity to meet with thousands of local government leaders from across the nation every year through conferences and workshops and the podcast. Just these interviews, these conversations are just so insightful. And one of the things I have learned about local government leaders is this: the best leaders are lifelong learners, not because they have all the answers. It's because they understand that leadership, that journey of leadership, is never finished. Every challenge, every difficult conversation, every budget season, every organizational change or disruption is another opportunity to grow. That's why this summer we're doing something different inside the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. We're launching a special summer series called Stories That Shape Leaders. You know that every week I take a best-selling book, usually a business book, and we break down its insights and apply them to local gov. This summer, we're taking biographies, memoirs, timeless leadership books that don't necessarily fall into those typical business, culture, strategy kind of genre. And we're going to explore the lives, the decisions, the failures, challenges, the lessons of leaders who navigated incredible adversity, who had to build trust when hope was fleeting, who inspired others not only to dream but to take action, and who left a lasting impact. Leadership isn't shaped just through strategies and frameworks alone. It is shaped through stories. Stories that challenge assumptions, stories that expand our perspective, stories that help us become the leaders our communities need us to be. When you join the MLDC, you unlock the entire summer series, but you unlock even more. You unlock the weekly leadership content, the live mastermind sessions, the nationwide community of local government leaders, and all the MLDC resources, not just for the summer, but for the rest of 2026. If you are looking for a place to continue growing this summer while connecting with leaders who understand the unique challenges of local government, I would love to invite you to join us. Learn more at haltingwinter.com/MLDC or simply use the link in the show notes. Now, back to the conversation. Well, I'm back with Charlie Bush. You just listened to this. You listened to part one, talking about this adventure you were going to go on, Charlie. And now here you're back. We haven't released episode one as we thought we might. Instead, we're just going to cram these two, part one and part two. So you get the whole story now. Is you've now gone on your Misogi or whatever, however that's pronounced, right? This kind of big challenge that you've prepared for yourself. So tell us about it. Tell us about what happened as you embarked on this crazy hike adventure.
It was an adventure. So it ended up being 123 miles. I had the top end would have been 440, so shorter than I expected. Reason for that is there were thunderstorms that came through the night that I got off the trail that lit up a bunch of fires. And there was one at Snoqualmie Pass, which was kind of my next place to get off the trail, that was growing quite a bit early on. I went from 1 acre to 25 acres in a day, and it was 2 miles from the trail, and I was concerned about that. So I decided to just pause. I went home, watched the World Cup, third place game and the final, and enjoyed that, and was ready to get back out there and just decided to call it. And then it got all smoky anyway. And so it wouldn't have been, for a section hiker, a good place to be. But the journey itself was amazing. 123 miles through Section K of the PCT. This was my thing, but I would encourage all of you to just pick something that's going to stretch you and challenge you in some new and different ways. And it could be professional, but it's really nice for me that it's not, because I think there's a lot of professional insight that comes from doing something totally different. And it puts things in perspective. So Section K is known as the second hardest section of the Pacific Crest Trail, mainly because it's not maintained for a good 60 to 70 miles. Their PCTA, which maintains the trail, they're just trying to get the trails that connect to the PCT clear. And the estimate out there is around 1,100 blown down trees on the PCT for that section. And these are old growth trees. These are huge trees that are taller than I am. They're 6-7 foot diameter trees that you have to scramble up on top of and then climb over piles of trees and over trees and around trees. And the worst ones are the ones that are on a slant where they're huge and you have to grab onto the bark like with your fingernails almost and find ways to kind of wedge your body against the tree and scooch your way across it and get to the other side. And so lots of different challenges, mentally, physically, very tiring hiking. I mean, you hike a little bit, you hit a pile of trees, then you navigate all the trees, then you hike a little more, then you hit a pile of trees. And at one point, I was just laughing to myself because there was just a challenge around every corner. And besides that, you have washed out areas of trail that you have to climb through and be careful you don't fall down the ridge. And you've got, in my case, I encountered something called hogweed, which is a particular plant that when it's broken, it releases this milky white substance that will burn your skin. And I swung my leg over a blowdown and got into a whole bunch of hogweed all over my leg. And I had to do a lot of emergency first aid on that. I'd not been exposed to it before. So I was texting with my wife on my satellite messenger and she was sending me Google results of what to do about it. And I was thinking I might have to bail out. And that was on day 2. And bailing out wasn't going to be fun because I'd have to go back through what I had already been through. And I just come through a pretty hellacious section of trail. There are bridges out there. The most dangerous area is called Milk Creek. And that area is, you go down like 2,000 feet on a really steep trail. You can use trail in quotations because it's eroded and completely grown over and you can barely make out where you're supposed to walk. And then below your feet, which you can't really see well, there are boulders and there are blowdowns and there are things that can trip you up and knock you down the ridge. And you hear about this place as you approach it for days. You can read about it on the app that we use out there to navigate, but you hear from other hikers who just say, oh, Milk Creek, it's awful. We heard there were 2 airlifts out of Milk Creek 2 days before we got there. I say we because I was hiking alone, but I was 5 minutes behind somebody for the first day that I left Stehekin. And then the second day, I just assumed they didn't exist or they were super fast because I didn't catch up to them. And it turned out on the end of day 2 out of Stehekin, day 3 of the whole hike, I did catch up to her and we camped in the same spot. And she was a really strong hiker and she's through hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. So she's going all the way to Mexico from Canada. And we hiked together for a day and a half and it was fantastic. And we helped each other through Milk Creek by splitting up the risk. One of us would take the lead for a while, the other would follow. And then we would switch it up. And that worked out really well. So a lot of problem solving. And it was so required so much presence that I was listening to an audiobook. I started out with I had a different one, but Shaolin Spirit's the one I listened to coming out of Stehekin. And it was great to get in the right mindset for what I knew what I was getting into. I knew this was going to be a really nasty section of quote unquote trail and difficult. And it was all of that. But it got me in the right mindset. And then I had to shut it off because the trail got too challenging. Around every corner, there was some new thing to deal with. And, it's funny in hindsight now, this just makes trivial a lot of things in life. Because you're at some point, it feels daunting. Like you wonder if you're going to get out of there. You wonder how you're going to get out of there. You don't want to be an aerial evacuation out of there. And it just feels overwhelming. And Mojo, the person I was hiking with, she and I were flying. And we had a great time. We were totally exhausted, but we were doing over 20 miles a day out there. And she was trying to reach her husband at Snoqualmie Pass for a meetup that was planned on a certain day. And so she was really pushing for that. I was just pushing because I didn't want to run out of food. Turned out I wasn't very hungry, so I didn't eat that much anyway. But for other reasons. And I just wanted to get through it, but you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to redline yourself as a human. So, but it all worked out. It was just a great experience. So immersive that maybe 3 days in, Mojo and I had a 5-minute conversation about what day is it? We just had no idea.
Yeah.
We just lost track of everything. We were just so immersed in like, all right, I'm going to go 25 miles today or 20 miles today. And, here's what the next thing is. And we just got to be ready for that. And both enjoying filming and all the scenery as well. So I think there's a lot in really, it felt like weeks that we were in the Glacier Peak Wilderness.
Well, that's the beauty of doing a kind of a challenge, like you say, that's so immersive. It takes your absolute focus and present attention. And also, like you say, there's things happening that it kind of, and when you're out in the middle of nowhere, just all the things that kind of bind us into time and our calendars and, everything becomes kind of new, but also this kind of ethereal. It's kind of interesting. I want to go back real quick because, again, go back in what we just talked about in part one of this recording was the preparation. You had prepared. I remember you talking about in the winter here, and it's cold in Seattle and wet, and so you've got you're training indoors in your home. You're still doing the elliptical or the treadmill, whatever that is, and then you are going out and you're going on hikes. You're preparing, but when you do a challenge, again, you can't replicate those trees that blew down. You might hop over a little. What we'd think are big trees, but you're talking about, you got almost like you thought you were going on a hike. Now you're like, you got to bring your rock climbing. It's like when you think about if you've watched the video footage of like people summiting Rainier, and towards the top, you got to have like snowshoe, the spikes and stuff, because you never know what you're going to be into. That's like, you can't really prepare for that. You can have the stuff and the mindset, but then you got to go do it. And so it's how interesting is. That's why I love this idea of this is a big challenge. And like you say, you're alone. Then how cool is that? You're with someone who's really pushing. How cool is that? Then you're kind of taking it up, and then you're pushing and you're helping. And oh man, it's just what a cool experience that you couldn't have planned. You couldn't have written that narrative, right? You had to go experience it. And that's why we do these things, not just for the challenge and not just for the mental clarity, but for the adventure of it, to figure out like, what is it?
Absolutely. And, then you occasionally run into somebody, you have these really amazing conversations at times. I ran into a guy who had just retired. He's 55. I'm 51. He's like, how old are you? And I'm 51. He's like, I wish I retired at your age. And I'm pretty sure he was a tech guy from the Bay Area or something.
Yeah.
Had stock options. But yeah, I had a great chat with him for 2 hours because we're climbing over blowdowns. You don't do that quickly. And so we just worked together on it. And that was fantastic. He was the first person I had seen in 2 days. Going into this, my mindset was have fun. It was a vacation too. So how am I going to have fun with all of these blowdowns and keep my emotions from draining my energy? So it's very easy to go in there and just, it does feel huge and daunting. You feel tiny in there and like you're not going to get out, and you're just like you versus nature. But just to keep my emotions as much out of it as possible, if you just have the mindset of have fun, look at each blowdown challenge as its own unique thing. But you never had very long to celebrate because there's another one right around the corner for you. And that's good practice for life, I find. We encounter all kinds of challenging things in our profession, and it's your emotions can easily override your ability to think and to respond and react to things. And same there. I had seen a number of YouTube videos too of people kind of losing it in there because they get mad at the PCTA for not maintaining the trail, or mad at lack of government funding for that, and just the way it was. And it's like, no, this is just the way it is. And we all knew what we were getting into going in there. And I loved it. If it wasn't risky, I would go back and do it just for the mental exercise of doing it. It was incredibly impactful.
When we talked in part one about this term misogi, I think is how you pronounce it, and the idea is this big challenge. And Jesse Itzler, I think I mentioned him. He talks about how when he does them, the idea is not to succeed. The idea is almost to choose a challenge that's so daunting that the likelihood is actually you're going to fail. And I think that's the beauty of it. And why is that? And that's kind of hard, I think, for a leader who's so kind of stuck in always winning, is that you might not be challenging yourself to really grow. And that's what you had planned, right? 400 miles. It sounds insane. Even when you say, oh, I only got 100 and so. That sounds insane. And so, but like you said, things come up and things happen. And maybe that's part of this kind of challenge for yourself. Like you said, it's about being present, but it's also in that presence, realizing you're not in full control. And then what do you do? What do you do when these huge trees or these blowouts or this slide happens? And how do you respond? And that's part of the fun. Like you say, you can either look at that and become depressed and be like, oh no, my vacation's ruined because I had this plan and now I'm not going to get it done. And instead, it's like, no, this is part of it. This is why I'm out here, is to figure out, how do I get over this? How do I go through this? I met someone. How do we work together? Was that like, how present was that? How did you even have to war with that? Because I'm sure you had a different idea. I mean, you did. You went into it thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then you knew that there would be things, but how did you wrestle with that emotion? How did you deal with that lack of control? How did you make it fun instead of just depressing?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the Stockdale Paradox. It's Out of Good to Great by Jim Collins. I thought of that a little bit. I didn't really explicitly think of it, but as I think about it now, that's kind of what I was applying. And in that case, Admiral Stockdale was imprisoned by the North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War and was in the Hanoi Hilton, and had to have this mindset of, we're not going to get out by Christmas, but we are going to get out of here eventually. And it was kind of like that. It was like, I don't dictate what this day is going to bring, and people will give you reports of the trail and things that you might see, but that's their perspective of it. Sometimes it was worse than they thought, and you took in, and other times it was better. When we first got into this area of Milk Creek, the top parts of that descent and on both sides of the valley weren't that bad, and we actually went in there like, oh, whatever, this is like overblown. And then we got to the lower part, we're like, nope, it's now earning its reputation. Like, you could definitely break an ankle in here. So it required a lot of focus. Being with a partner was great because we could, it was kind of a light interaction as opposed to trying to listen to an audiobook or something. But yeah, the belief was we're just going to get through it. Being with another person, super helpful. We'd see people every now and again, so we knew people were coming through. That gives you confidence as well. We had one guy tell us a story about a cougar chasing a hiker that he saw, and that was pretty creepy. So I had to put that out of my mind pretty quickly. But then you go through this transformation, your body does as well. Your body takes a few days to figure out what you're trying to do. And once it figures that out, at least for me, I turn a corner somewhere around day 4, day 5, and I was getting there at the end of this section. And the hard part for me was I went to Leavenworth to take what's called a 0 day, which means you take a day of rest. So I came off the trail really early in the morning. I actually got down to Leavenworth. I pretty much had 2 days and a half down there. And then I took a bus back, and I was going to hike back in the afternoon. But it ended up changing my bus reservations to take the bus all the way to Everett and then back to Skagit County. It's nice that Amtrak runs a bus over Stevens Pass. But the hardest moment was the night before when I changed my reservations. I checked the forecast, checked the fires, and saw that fire had gone from 1 acre to 25. And I was raring and ready to go for this next section. And I just had to put the brakes on and really apply objective thinking to it. Part of me just wanted to go for it. It'll be fine, but I also didn't want to be that section hiker, because working in public service, we all know, we've all encountered, most of us probably, disasters where you have people who do dumb things and get in the way of response, and you definitely don't want to be that person. So if you don't have a reason to be out there, you don't necessarily, need to put that chance out there. So, that's why I pulled the plug, but it was hard to pull the plug. I was feeling really good, ready to go. But that gives me something for next year. Knowing that Amtrak bus goes over Stevens Pass, which is perfect. Next year, I can just hop right on the path via bus from Mount Vernon. So I don't even need to ride to the trail, really. I just need to ride to Mount Vernon. My wife will give me that, and off I go. And then I'll have a resupply at Snoqualmie Pass and another one at White Pass, and be able to finish Washington. Good chance of it next year. Trail gets easier, too, going south. And I was looking forward to that. We did get out of the blowdowns, and that was a welcome relief. And that's when Mojo took off. It was like, go, I don't want to hold you back. Get out of here. She did a smile day, and she's out of here.
Wow.
So very cool. I'm watching her videos now, though. Molly Rose Outdoors, if any of you are interested in checking out her YouTube channel. She also trained like crazy through the winter to get ready for this. And so it was fun for me. It was very validating, because in years past, I had done other sections north of where I was, and I would get on the trail and I'd kind of measure myself a little bit against the other thru hiker folks. I wasn't a thru hiker, but against the thru hikers, to see where am I. And the northbound thru hikers at that point have done over 2,500 miles, and they are just hiking beasts. And you can hike with them for a little while, but then when you get a steep uphill, they're just gone. And that was fine. And then the southbounders, they're just getting started, and they're maybe 50 miles in or whatever. And I was able to hike with them. This time we were the two, at least for the people we saw, we were the 2 fastest hikers on the trail going southbound. So that was really fun to be able to just kind of train all winter and get to that point, and gave me a lot of confidence for the future. So yeah, I wrestled with a lot of things, Seth. But really the mindset helped. Knowing what I was getting into, and just staying present, and knowing that I had a bunch of time. I mean, if it took longer, it turns out I was under eating. So I had tons of food, and if it took longer, I would have been fine. Yeah. And it just would have changed the end of the hike. It brought it back a little bit or whatever. Also had a nice time in Leavenworth. Great town.
It is.
Yeah, just hung out in Leavenworth in a different way. Totally different perspective. I now have a favorite bench and a favorite oak tree to sit under.
Hey, there you go. I love that town. It's so cool. It's such a good getaway. And like you say, this is a bigger thing, because you want to hike a long way on the Pacific Trail. So you're kind of biting it off in these sections, and now to go through what, is a very difficult section. And like you say, you have, not only did it give you some awareness of, okay, maybe I underate, and I can, we kind of do that, right? Oh, we overpack and we overplan and then you get into reality and you're like, oh, okay. So it gives you more confidence to prepare for the next time. But it also, man, to know that you got through that hard stretch and all those difficulties. Now, when you go through a little easier, you're going to be like, man, this is going to be great. Like, now I get to listen to the books. Now I get to, and so how exciting to be fired up for even next year and to see that training, like you just said, to know that, man, we were fast. Like, okay, now I kind of have an idea of, and it's cool to meet that person who really could blaze, right? Because then you're like, oh, can I keep up? Can I? And then it helps you go, man, I could even do, okay, next year I keep training. This is going to be great because now I'm going to be able to probably do this much trail. And so it gives you, again, more reality to the challenge for the next time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Mojo was 30 as well. So she was telling me she feels old now that she's turned 30. I just had to laugh for sure. Just wait. Life's it's a long life if you live normal lifespan. So yeah, you got a lot more time there, but it was good for me to chase a 30-year-old up the trail a little bit. It's an incredible experience. And then coming back to work was, just everything had a different perspective, and it still does. And David Goggins calls these cookies in the cookie jar. Like, you do these things that are really hard, and, however it goes, you either learn from the challenge, and it doesn't turn out the way you expected, or sometimes you learn from it and it does turn out the way you expected, or you just feel really good about what you're able to do. And, you can kind of fall back on those when times are hard at work. And I came back to a bunch of personnel matters that needed resolution. And I remember the HR manager looking at me like, oh, sorry, here you go. But for me, it was like, it's not a big deal. I just came through so many blowdowns and I got used to them after a while. Like, I got a PhD in blowdown management. That stuff is it's pretty straightforward, really. So yeah, definitely a good time away gives you perspective. Yeah, I would just encourage everybody to do it. I think it's quite valuable, and it is a form of professional development. And for what it's worth, I'm an ICMA credentialed manager, and ICMA will allow you to work on personal resilience. And I count some hours usually from my hikes towards that, and they are very receptive to that because you're out there really kind of hardening your mental mindset and your ability to not respond to things and not let your emotions get the best of you. And the physical part, of course, is there, but this is all a part of really becoming, I think, a better human.
I think that's such a great point. We hear the adage oftentimes, if you work with your hands, you should rest with your mind. If you work with your mind, you should rest with your hands. And I think there's something very real there for especially leaders who work not only with their minds, but work with people who are, it's one of the things I do a lot of training on is the transition from a very high skilled doer to now a leader. Those are two radically different things. And we see that in the private sector. The person who's awesome at sales will be put in a manager position and just totally suck, because managing people and selling they have some overlap, but I would say little if you want to really lead well a group of people. And it can be like that where you work on something. You guys are so as city managers, you've got strategy, you've got the present realities, the future things that you've got to be, managing and planning towards. But then you've got the emotion. Like, again, you come back and there's personnel, there's things that now, okay, the people side of things. It's so good to get out and free the mind from that and to clear. And it's not like again, I think you had said it maybe before we started hitting record even, you don't do this to go and, oh, this is going to be where I go think about the real big things of work and the big challenges. No, you're going on vacation, right? You're going to clear your mind. But I think sometimes when you do a challenge, maybe the reason our vacation. Have you ever heard that adage? I'm sure you have. You come back from vacation. I need a vacation from my vacation. Well, it's probably because your vacation wasn't really vacation. It was just more work. It was more this is where I'm going to read all my business books, or this is where I'm going to, so you're on the beach still working. You're just doing it in the sand and you're thinking about all the drama. You can't, like you said, when you do a challenge like this and really stress yourself, you don't have the capacity to think about Brenda in Public Works or Tony on City Council. You got you got trees the size of like mini mountains you got to deal with. You got the opportunity, cougars, you got to be on high alert, kind of be present. And then you're wanting to soak it in too. It's not just always, the danger and the elements. It's also the beauty. I'm sure you have, and you got to go look again. Tell us the name of the podcast, your YouTube channel.
Yeah, it's Charlie's Hikes. And yeah, you can definitely check out the images and the videos that we saw. I mean, we just saw incredible perspectives of Glacier Peak and other mountains. And yeah, the beauty that also soaks into your spirit is really something that you can always just think back on, right? And it just relaxes you. And
it reminds you that I'm trying to find I still haven't found the perfect wording for this yet, but the idea that you are impactful, but you're not that significant. Right? I think we long for significance, but the reality is even these people in history, when you look back, it's kind of caricatures. It's not the full, like if you sat down, like who would the 3 people you sit down to dinner with? I bet if you sat down with them, you'd be at the end of the dinner like, that's cool. And then like, okay. And they're also real people, right? I think sometimes these things help us ground ourselves and go, man, that's right. How cool is the world? How cool is it just the gift of life that we're alive on this floating ball of, space dust at such a time as this, taking in the beauty and the wonder of it all. And that I get to go back and have impact, that I do get to do something impactful to help change people's lives. And to maybe someone will never go up on the Pacific Crest Trail, but they might do the trail in the backyard. I'm sure you got tons of trails all throughout, Cedar Woolley. And so how cool to be a part of that, to give someone at least a taste of that, hopefully. And maybe that's where the challenge would be, right? They're going to go do a challenge in the park.
Absolutely. Get on and walk. Yeah, that's right. I did the 12-hour, I can't remember what it's called, 12-hour walk, I think, a few years ago, twice. And that's a silent walk. You just turn off everything, no phone, nothing, no distractions. You just run a timer on it. You just start walking and you can take as many breaks as you want. It's a great also way to clear your mind and just move your body and that kind of thing. It's interesting. I did take another week off after the hike. So I had 3 weeks planned and I ended up hiking for a little over a week. And then I took the rest of that week off. And I was thinking I might get back on trail and then it didn't work out. And so I just stayed home. But one of the beautiful things is, you're not out there hiking thinking about work. But when you stop hiking and you do have that time then and you're separated mentally from work, that's where you have a chance to really start to reflect on things and gain perspective that you didn't have necessarily when you were in it all the time, every day. And that was a really good time. I had this conversation with Butterfly about retirement on the trail. And, I came away from that thinking, I'm going to go home and crunch some numbers and take a closer look at that. And I did that and had a great chat with my wife. And we have kind of we take a date certain and a plan and a vision and some stuff we're going to run the ground. And without going into great detail, that was an outcome of this whole experience. I felt like Section K gave me so much. There was part of me that just wanted to pause anyway and really take it in and process it. And so that's the beauty of doing something like this. And I would definitely encourage folks too, if you can, give yourself a little bit of that reflection time so you can really kind of mine the good stuff that you have just uncovered for yourself.
Yeah. How cool to be, even when you go and take more of a typical vacation, not going off and climbing, crazy trails. But, even think about how many photos we take now. Remember when, I don't know if when I was a kid, my dad had one of those, you remember they bought the carousel like slides and you'd send in the film and they'd send you back the little slides and you put it in cha-ching, 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 and you watch the slideshow. I remember that, like, it was so exciting when we got the slides back from the developer. How many pictures do we take now? I thought about this the other day. I barely look through my camera roll and I have thousands, probably 10,000 photos on my phone of kids. And the only time I ever see kids is like if I'm ever on Facebook, like some Facebook memory comes up and it's like 10 years ago, my kids, 10 years ago. So it is interesting how cool to be, to take sometimes we pack the vacation so full. That's why we need the vacation from the vacation. We haven't really settled and gone, man, what did I learn there? What did I experience? I want to soak that in for a moment and just reflect on it. because these should be these monumental times of Sabbath, of rest, of refreshment, of rejuvenation. And sometimes we just go from thing to thing to thing, and we don't do that. So, how cool a gift it was to give you some spare time to do that and to reflect. But man, we could talk for hours. There's just so many cool things about this. And again, we just want to encourage whatever that is. Doesn't even have to be an activity as far as like hiking or climbing or some sport. It could be, you're finally going to crochet that huge blanket or something, or you're going to what would be a challenge for you that's something of interest, something maybe you've done, or maybe something, that's where I can't remember his name. When he actually interviewed Jesse Itzler about this, and he played the piano. He always just wanted to play the piano and was like, dude, that's intimidating, and I'm going to suck, and I'm good at everything I do now because I'm older in life, and why would want to start over? And he did that, and he played in front of like his wife, and it was like this his wife was like bawling because she's like, oh, and he's bawling. It was just a crazy cool experience. And so whatever it is, I think there's an opportunity to stretch yourself and challenge yourself, and the lessons learned from that, especially for leaders, especially for city managers, administrators, county. When you're at the top of the game, you're often seen as a person who needs to be in control. And I think that's the beauty of these kind of challenges, is they remind you you're not really in control. And there's a humble, but there's also a stress release that comes in that, to go, I can do good work, but at the end of the day, I don't really have control. And the more you try to, tight hand it, the more stressed you are. And I think the more likely you're going to have a heart attack, put yourself in a grave way before your time. So these kind of challenges, I think, reset the mind, reset even the inner works of our being, to remind us how human we are, and not as godlike as sometimes I think we maybe feel like we need to be to accomplish whatever is put upon us. But man, Charlie, so good. Anything in closing?
Just whatever you decide to do. If you take this on, have fun. Just take it one moment at a time. Just what's in front of you. And I really feel like that's a good lesson for life. We often spend so much time thinking about the future, and this could happen and that could happen. And there's certainly an intentional aspect of that in our profession that is important. But once you're done with the thinking or the discussion with the team or whatever, try to set that aside, go back to the one moment at a time. Because the reality is, a lot of the things we come up with, and we're really good at catastrophizing as a profession, most of that stuff's never going to happen to us. It's just good to have a little bit of a plan for it. We kind of know how we're going to approach it, but don't dwell in that space. And for me, it was like, don't dwell in the fact that, there are 1,000 more blowdowns out there. And celebrate the fact that there's one less blowdown because I just walked over one. And I think, whatever your goal is, take it one step at a time, stay present, and try to keep that. If you go out and do anything like this, whether it's crochet or something else, each stitch at a time, just try to stay in that space. I think you'll find your stress level drop quite a bit, and it's just going to help you really do a great job with that stitch. And to me, it's all those little stitches that make up our career and impact people's lives that really matter.
So good. Always so good. Always good to have you on, Charlie. Always good to hear your insights. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thank you, Seth. Really appreciate it.
The stories we share here on the Halting Winter Podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.